Hi everyone, my name is Angela and this is my final presentation for my Living Ocean class. It's in regards to my field trip that I decided to take to the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, Illinois. Decided to take a little segue from a business trip and go check out the aquarium. So just want to talk to you about a few things. Just number one, the most significant concept that I have learned at the aquarium was the fact that the Shedd Aquarium is growing their own corals. What they are doing by growing their own corals is that they are helping to grow the coral population. They're trying to help it reproduce, and this way they're not going into any coral reefs and taking corals, therefore ruining those habitats and leaving the fish and the other things that feed off of these corals by themselves. My perception of our local environment in Florida is that it's a little bit different than what you would typically see in an aquarium in somewhere, say, in the Midwest. The one thing that they did have is an exhibit called Wild Reef, which is most closely related to the Philippines, which is closely related to our ecosystem and our environment. What I did find is that in the Philippines, they have mangroves, which we have in Florida. And there are a lot of different species that live in the mangroves. So I felt that that was one of the exhibits that was most closely related to us. So one thing that I did find is that there were a lot of exhibits that had kelp, which is a primary producer. So my little sketch of kelp is, I don't know if you can see it, it's got the blades, you've got the stipe, you have the holdfast, the bladder, and then you've got the fronds here that are describing the kelp in itself. What the kelp does is the kelp is a main source of food for a lot of different things. Sea urchins feed off of it, little fish feed off of it, whole food chain for things to feed off of and to grow and to keep it surviving. One of the other things that I found very interesting besides that were the fact that they had kelp in a tank with a lot of different sea urchins, and then you had starfish in the same tanks, and they all kind of feed off of each other. The sea urchin eats the kelp, and the starfish, or the sea stars is what they call them now, rather, they eat the sea urchins, and so on and so forth. And then in another tank you have a sea otter, which will eat your sea urchin. So it's just a whole big web and a whole food chain, which I thought was very interesting. It's something that's completely different and not something that I would have ever expected to see. One of the other things that I have learned, or one of the things that fascinates me and personally, are jellyfish. They had two different types of jellyfish, which I found very interesting. One was in the actual exhibit of Wild Reef itself, and those were upside down jellyfish. So these primarily float upside down, and what they do is they're in shallow areas of water. And in the shallow areas of water, their tentacles, they grab up as much brown and green algae as they can, and that is their main source of food. So these jellyfish will sit there and they will float upside down, and you'll see their tentacles reaching for the sunlight and reaching for the algae. That's how they'll get their food. It was very interesting. And then when I left the exhibit, they had the larger jellyfish that are yellow in color on the dome, and they were swimming as you would typically see a jellyfish would swim. So just thought that was interesting that they had two different jellyfish within the same exhibit so that children, adults, anyone could learn all about these jellyfish. So those were my two interesting facts, I should say, that I had learned. Kelp, again, is a primary producer. The jellyfish is just a species that I thought was very interesting, something that's completely different. So I hope you guys enjoyed my short little mini episode on the Shedd Aquarium and my fun facts that I learned. Thanks!